Every week, a new band. Brought to you by NZ On Air. ActiveLive! Yeah. ActiveLive!
This track is called Pans.
Hands. Very exciting. Thank you for being here, team, and thanks to Insoni Music for your help with this as well. Absolutely stunning. If you've just joined us here at radioactive.fm, we're in Active Live, thanks to NZ On Air Music, with the wonderful Grains. That was their track Pans. What a beautiful sound team. Thank you for that. Now, we're so excited to hear your self-titled debut album coming out next month. Very, very excited, in fact. Tell us about the creation and recording process for the album. How did it come to be?
Well, it was all a bit ad hoc, really, wasn't it? We had an idea that we would go into a studio, which we didn't. We just recorded it mostly up at Jared's place, a little bit at Perry's place, and just sort of learned on the fly how to record stuff and tighten up our music and stuff. It was really a great process.
And the brunt of the recording was certainly in a pretty wonderful sleepover weekend at the Nook, which was just so much fun. We interspersed with a whole lot of Worms, the game, where we would, half of us would be in recording, the other half of us would be out playing Worms, and then we would meet in the evenings for a great big battle. So that
That's amazing.
I think for us, so much of the making these songs that you're hearing right now have been a process of years of playing it, of jamming it live, practicing and figuring out new parts, and so they've evolved so much. And I think by recording it ourselves, it would have been so expensive to record it in a studio because we weren't sure of the composition fully until we sat down and did it ourselves.
So much of the stuff that we do up until sitting down to record the album was quite improvisational. We'd kind of just have the sequences running, kind of jam them, make eye contact with each other, make a switch, So sitting it down and putting it, in Ableton was quite a daunting process because we had to lock it in, which was kind of awesome because I feel like the tracks have really gotten to this extra level of polish on them now, which I think we're all really happy with.
Also, maybe shout out to Michael Sutherland as well from Kentucky.
Yeah, that's true.
One great day I tracked the entire drums in one day.
Yeah, shout out to Michael Sutherland out in Otaki. Amazing engineer, recording artist, really. He tracked our whole drum kit for the album. That was the one thing that we really couldn't do ourselves. You need a drum room, you need nice microphones, but the thing is, everything else we've got is quite electronic, and so our gears are good enough, which was really, really nice. So we could take our time a little bit with it. We really did.
And also just a quick shout out to Tristan Mercer, aka Alpha Stale, who he's Alpha Stale. He played with us at a gig on Wednesday, and he's actually been mixing and mastering it for us, and he does phenomenal work. So
Amazing. Tristan actually used to help us out on these Active Lives a long time ago. We're a huge fan of their work. That's awesome. And also the music for therapy stuff that Michael does as well. It's really beautiful. So how cool that you're collaborating with these people. And it sounds like a really beautiful, fulfilling and affirming process to record in your own spaces and spaces that you've been making music for such a long time. Apart from obviously the financial considerations that you bring up there, what do you think recording in home spaces has brought to this record?
I think it gave us a lot of chance to really sit down, really listen, and make quite a few compositional decisions that weren't locked in. I feel like if we went to a studio, we would have kind of felt obliged to, just have the one take and that's it, and kind of leave it there. Yeah, it was really nice to be able to be like, no, we can retrack it, no, we can retrack that, and that's all thanks to quite a 12-track mixer that we got with some of the money from our gigs.
And
so,
we all took turns, in a way, sitting down, being the recording engineer with whoever needed to record their instrument. And so we all kind of learned how to be directors with each other, one-on-one, which is quite a unique way of recording. And I think we all learned a lot about how each other work through that too.
Yeah, plus it was comfortable. Like,
Absolutely.
we were in our own space.
With comfort comes authentic tones. And I know, speaking for myself and Fred as well, we need a comfortable space. The rest of these guys are professionals, Jared busted his whole thing out in one day out of the recording studio. But I need a comfy place. I need calm. I need Worms going on in the background. That's how I record.
Shout out to Worms. What a great game. Oh, that's awesome. And I think that really, I'm very excited to hear the record. I think that'll really ring through. You've mentioned a few times it's sort of got an improvisational process to how you create music. Talk us through the beginning process of your songwriting. Is that something that starts with one person's idea, or is it a collaborative thing from the beginning?
I think we have to give a real big shout out to Synthstrom Audible here in Wellington. The Deluge has been real fundamental in building these tracks. It's something where we were able to quickly jot down some kind of sequence or rhythmic idea, and then Jared, our phenomenal drummer over here, picks it up and goes with something, and that's when all of the rest of us kind of come in and sort of work about with it. And then with the Deluge, I'm just sort of controlling the effects and parameters and doing some sort of synth-lady stuff. But those sort of original rhythmic ideas that the Deluge provides is kind of like the seed of the track, and everything kind of comes from that.
Absolutely.
Right, because we in a way, the Deluge taught us a little bit about music theory. I mean, neither Perry or I have ever learnt music theory until we needed to, and even now we don't really, we haven't really got a great grasp on it. But what it allowed us to do is we can set a key, we can set a tempo, we can try out different polyrhythms, and we learnt through feel. So we owe a lot to the Deluge for teaching us music.
I mean, actually, initially when me and Callum were doing some sort of live performances back in the day, we actually both used Deluges that were MIDI synced up, so we were kind of jamming with two Deluges for a while. That was really, really fun.
Yeah.
And actually that track Pans that we just played was actually from that kind of era, and we just developed it into a full band song.
So to answer your question, I think the improvisation kind of came through us having to learn. And so we've had to learn how to play our songs.
I think that's such a beautiful juxtaposition of the kind of binary that music theory can represent for a lot of creatives versus the necessity for it sometimes. It's nice that you were able to strike that sort of fine line between needing the mechanisms of music and then being able to break those mechanisms of music to create the beautiful atmospheric sounds that you do. That's really cool. And speaking of it, I love the atmospheric quality to your sound. It opens itself up to vast interpretation in my mind. When you create, do you create with a specific theme in mind for each track, or is it not as categorized as that?
Yeah, to answer that question, some of the tracks, yes, some of them are a bit more ambiguous, but some of them absolutely. Like a couple of our tracks actually kind of came out of this gig that we did down at a place called Exchange in Christchurch, XCHC. Lovely, lovely space. If you're ever in Aotearoa, go check it out. And our process for that, we kind of were like, okay, well, we're playing this long ambient set. This was in the ambient era. And we decided to go with like the 4 elements, which was a kind of basic idea, but we took our own interpretations and spins on that kind of thing. And from there, some of those tracks have persisted they made their way into the album that we're going to release. And so they do have a certain quality. There's one that's very much like flames, and there's one that's also about like things growing and blooming and blossoming.
That'll be the last song that we play today.
Yeah.
We'll play that one for you, called Succession.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think particularly because a lot of these tracks, well, at least half of them have like an ambient track basis. To create an ambient composition that goes somewhere, you need to figure out a story. You need to figure out, okay, what's this, where are we right now? Are we in a forest? Is there sunlight? Like, what's the weather? And then how do we progress that? And so,
what do we stumble upon in that forest? Actually, me and Callum did a lot of this sort of mapping back in the day when we'd be jamming something for like a set or something. We'd actually write out what the story was. So you mentioned the sea lion earlier. For that one, we had a whole idea of starting on the beach, snorkeling over a coral reef, sinking down into the depths of the ocean, then coming across these bioluminescent jellyfish, and then like shooting back up to the surface really quickly. So that gave us an idea of what the energy and what this sort of tone would work within that. So when it came to improvising it, we kind of knew what that space was trying to create. So yeah, so sometimes there's a story that's being told through it. Not always, but quite often. Yeah.
Beautiful. And what a beautiful way to link the journey that you're going through in your own head to the journey that your then audience can go on, especially when you're performing in, say, outdoor venue spaces, or when you're performing amongst nature and on the sea lion, for instance. How beautiful that you link it to the ocean. That's really cool. And I do want to talk a bit about recent Voices of Moana, very much about the ocean, beautiful podcast you contributed to. But first off, shall we have another track?
Yeah, sure thing.
Sounds
Wonderful. Good. What have we got coming up?
This track is called Unco.
Unco. Wonderful.
And it's basically, imagine your old mate, your uncle, he's had a bit too much over the course of a night, basically.
I think we all know how that feels. What a beautiful track. Thank you so much for that, team. If you're just joining us here on 88.6, we have the wonderful Grains in for Active Live today. And I could talk to you all till the cows come home, but I'm aware that we've got the Friday Drive brought to you by the wonderful Ghost Media starting very soon. So I've got 2 more questions for you now, and then we'll get one final track if that's cool. First off, super excited about the upcoming album, as I've mentioned, and the release show you've got going on April 12th, supported by Silver Spiral and Japes at the one and only Meow. Tell us why you've chosen those acts to share the stage with you at your debut album release party.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're really, really keen to do is sort of showcase a nice sort of blend of the people are really experimenting with electronic sounds in their music, and we're a massive fan of Silver Spiral and Japes. Mia Kelly, whose project is Japes, the amazing work that she does with Pyramid Club and work for loudspeakers as well. You know, that kind of stuff is just, it's really awesome to see people experimenting with these electronic tones. And Shohana, Silver Spiral, also really, really blown away with the stuff that she does too. Myself and Jed and Fred actually caught her playing at the Quarry just about a week ago, and that was just an amazing show. So we really love the work that they're doing. It was actually kind of funny playing an iGum on Wednesday, and Jed was the only guitarist that night. So I think what I'm trying to say there is, you know, like really, really awesome to see people experimenting with sounds that are sort of exploring more sort of electronic flavors, because that's something that's obviously been very core to what we do as well, and we really appreciate other artists doing the same kind of thing, and we love their stuff.
It is beautiful, and I really think that you guys have kind of helped pave the way for that being a more prominent thing in the live scene here in Wellington over the past few years, which I really appreciate. So kudos to you guys for creating that space. My final question for you today, and I have so many more things to ask you, so we're going to have to get back in sometime, please, anytime. We'd love to have you back. But I wanted to know what you hope listeners take away from your upcoming album.
I think so like what we mentioned before, like this has been a massive learning process for all of us, I think, in terms of, learning how how music might work and what we can make together. And so I think a huge part of that, you come up to, with any creative pursuit, you come up to these blocks, right? And you go, I don't know about this solo I'm writing, or I don't know about this bass line moment, or whatever it is. And I think, at the end of the day, when we bring it back to that core reason for why we're doing this is to have fun and to see what we can do. It doesn't matter. And so I would say to like anyone out there, don't worry about what it is you're making. Don't worry about what it is you're making it with. Think about what it is that you want to do with it.
What a beautiful sentiment.
I'd like to add that perfection is an illusion. I pretty much just surf through the music that these guys make. I'm singing on the fly, basically. So recording the album was a bit of a challenge for me to get all structured. But I think another thing that I would like people to take away from the album is a journey, because the whole album is basically one piece cut up into small, easily digestible tracks. But if you listen to it start to finish, it will take you on an entire journey. So, headphones on, lie down in the dark, or dance.
How gorgeous. Gosh, I cannot wait to hear this album. It's going to be so beautiful. Hey, thank you so much to all of you for joining us today. It's been so lovely having you here. Catch these guys playing their self-titled debut album release party Friday, the 12th of April, as we mentioned, with Silver Spiral and Japes at the one and only Meow, with some Alley Cats DJs straight afterwards. Always fun. Tickets are available from moshtix.co.nz. Catch them there. What's the final track we've got going on today, team?
The final track that we're going to be playing is called Succession,
Wonderful.
and we do very much hope to release this as a single before the album, so keep an eye on us. You can follow us on grains_NZ on Instagram.
Hell yeah, you're definitely hearing this one on Active very, very soon. Wonderful. Thanks to NZ On Air Music as well for helping us out. Let's get into it.
Active Live. Friday, 3:30. Every week a new band. In studio. Brought to you by NZ On Air.